To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Cristopher Paolini is a science fiction doorstopper that I believe only people who are fans of Cristopher Paolini's and have never read any other books from any other authors might enjoy this book. Everybody else will want their time back. And since this book in audio format is 28 hours long, it is a lot of lost time. I'm not getting back. Hello, I'm Claire. I like some books. And as I've already hinted at, this book is not one of them. This is my third time recording this review, and I am ready for this to be the last recording. Everything I said up until now was spoiler-free. Now we are getting into the spoiler stuff. And when I say I'm getting into the spoilers, I mean I'm going to recap the book now. So if for whatever reason you still want to read it, now would be a good time to go. I shall consult my notes so I get everything completely right. This book features a female protagonist, and our girl Kira Navarez is a child math prodigy who currently works as a xenobiologist on a terraformable planet. What she and her crew actually do there is quite interesting, but it has no relevance to the plot whatsoever, so I'm gonna move on. While she is doing her thing on the planet, she discovers an ancient alien room and gets covered with alien dust. The dust turns out to be a spacesuit, a black one, and it's covering her up to here. Just, you know, I'm dressed up as Kira. I'm basically her, except that you can still see my hands. That's moving on. The suit has a mind of its own, and it kills everyone around Kira 2 times before Kira figures out how to effectively communicate with the suit. But while they are still lost in translation, and Kira is so enraged, a part of her suit breaks off and creates a whole new alien race. Will become relevant later. Our girl then gets on a merchant ship whose crew instantly becomes her new family. How do you know that they are instantly a family? Because she is constantly repeating how she is gonna get off the ship first chance available. Together with the crew, she is now fighting the 2 alien races that they've discovered since she discovered the alien room. One of them are the jellies, who are like jellyfish-ish, and the other ones are nightmares. They have the same exact texture as her suit. But it will take her like 2 hours to figure out that there is a connection there. Smart, that one. A prodigy. Prodigy and a xenobiologist. A lot of stuff happens here in between. They team up with some jelly rebels. It's really not that important to the plot. All of the grown-ups act like grumpy teenagers all of the time. Kira bonds with her suit and the captain, and she defeats the main baddies of both alien species, and everybody celebrates! Hooray! She becomes a godlike being in that whole process and decides to use her new superpowers to create a space station for the humans and the jellies to mingle in peace. The nightmares are not invited as they are all destroyed. God Kira gives out quest rewards to everybody involved and flies off into space to kill more baddies that she just remembered existed. And that's how she finds herself sleeping in a sea of stars. The end. Did this book need to be 28 hours long? No. No, it did not. The thing is, even I think I would be less mad if it were shorter. For example, if this were a short story, I would even say it's fine. Because for a short story, it would be okay. But if you're going to waste 28 hours of my life, I better get an excellent, epic story. And this was not it. The book ends with an author's note where Paolini basically says that he was done editing this book. He just couldn't edit it anymore, so he published it. I mean, I completely understand him wanting to be done with this book, seeing as he was writing it over a span of 9 years. And I understand the publisher wanting to publish it so they can get all those monies from the fans of the author. But now the book is out, and now I think it's also understandable that I want to rant about it. I have some thoughts. If you take any chapter out of the context of this book, the chapter in itself is not at all badly written. Some of them are even quite interesting. The problem with them is, put together, they do not make a complete story. And now I'm going to give you a few examples of why they don't match up. And I think this is completely due to the fact that the book was written over such a long period of time, because it really reads like, oh, this month Paolini was really into religion. So he wrote a chapter about religion. And in this world we have two new religions, the numerists and the entropists. The numerists think that the point of living is counting numbers in sequence, while the entropists are into science and they wanna figure out how to reverse entropy. As a concept, not bad. Not bad at all. I enjoyed that chapter. What I didn't like is how the entropists were viewed as the one true religion, the best one even, and the numerists were looked at as, oh, those silly, can't they just stop counting? They are going on my nerves. So first of all, the execution was not as empathetic as I would have preferred, but I can see that being just a me issue. What I think everybody should have an issue with is that after that chapter, we never hear from the numerists ever again. We hear from the entropists, but that's only because two of them join our main crew, and then it's repeated like 2 times that they are entropists, and that's also it. And then the funniest thing for me pertaining to religion was, I think 2/3 into the book, all of a sudden, all of our main characters, so everybody on the crew of the merchant ship, just starts swearing. And by swearing, I mean they start saying Jesus Christ and oh my God. And I find it absolutely fascinating because before then, nobody was Christian. In that chapter, they are. And you know, in that other chapter before that I mentioned, you had these weird new religions. So it's like the author wrote that chapter about the religions at one point, and then 3 years later he was writing this particular chapter 2/3 into the book, and completely forgot that he had invented some other religions that there are there, and just defaulted to using Christianity with all of the characters who he worked so hard to bring them in from different colonies from all over the galaxy, but they are all Christian. Very consistent, very. Now I have to tell you about my absolutely favorite example of how inconsistent this book is. And that is with our main character, Kira. You know, the math prodigy, the xenobiologist, you know, the one who is a girl. I'm just realizing that's actually 3 problems that I have. We'll get to all 3 of them. The book was 28 hours long, and believe you me, I do have 28 hours of rant sitting in me here. I hope it won't be 28 hours, but I make no promises. So let's start with my fave thing, that our girl Kira is a math prodigy. She is so good at math from early on. You would not believe how good she was. No way. Then there's this scene where she's getting to know the captain. Oh, captain, my captain. And they're playing a card game. It's a card game, something like Texas Hold'em poker. You don't need to know what that is. It's irrelevant. You have some cards, the other person has some cards, and there are some cards in the middle that you both can use. Then what you need to do is see if your cards plus the cards on the table add up to a multiple of 7. What are multiples of 7? Well, if you are more than like 8 years old, you should know that those would be 7, 14, 21, 28, and so on and so forth. But there is a catch. There is a catch while playing this very mathy, very complicated game. They need to turn off their, I forgot what they call them, but they're like lenses that they put into their eyes and they function like a mobile phone. Let's leave it at that. So they have to disable that so that they cannot use the calculator in it. Oh, my brain hurts when I just think about this scene. Now you remember how our girl Kira is a math prodigy? And you know what the author does here. She gets the cards in her hand, looks at them, and wants to calculate how much is 7 times 3. How do you think our math prodigy reacts? How does she solve this amazingly hard algebra question? She thinks about how hard this is. But here comes the math prodigy thing. She remembers that 7 times 3 is just the same thing as 7 plus 7 plus 7. So good! Up until this point, I was still believing that the book might pull it off to be good and interesting. I remember this point specifically where everything just turned for me. I knew if I was expecting anything from this book, I was expecting way too much. Way too much. Let's move on to the second thing why Kira is so famous. Not in a good way. She's a xenobiologist. That means that she studies alien life. Now, at the beginning of this book, humanity had not yet encountered any aliens. They had only discovered one alien artifact several months prior to this. The thing is, our girl Kira has studied aliens. Now, when we say studied aliens, while you still have not made any contact with aliens, what that would mean is that she studied how alien life might have evolved, what it would look like. Would it be carbon-based, silicon-based? Would it have a DNA or something completely else? All of those things. Like, you would know a lot of biology, how things work on Earth, and try to conclude what else could be there. And I would say that by definition, you would need to have a fairly open mind to aliens being, well, you know, different from us. I mean, I think I'm not going out on a limb here when I say that this is something that I would expect from a xenobiologist. Now, what our girl Kira does is, this is so stupid. She has a conversation, which is a whole other thing that I need to, if I will have the energy to talk about it, it's like a whole other issue of how they are talking. Pull yourself together, Claire. You can do this. So she is talking to him, and she is talking about how they work, how they live, how they die, and so on and so forth. And what this guy is basically telling her, that they can always revert to an egg form and then grow anew or whatever. That they only die if they die in battle, but they also have their memories saved every so often so they can be implanted into another egg, so they basically can't die. Our girl is so shocked by this information that she just cannot. She cannot. She literally has a panic attack. She yells at this alien, "No, how can you be so different?" And then she goes into her room and has an existential crisis because he is so different. He's a fucking alien. I'm a physicist. Biology is definitely not my thing. And I know that there are jellyfish or something like that here on Earth that actually do these things, which I suppose were the inspiration for this whole race of aliens. But how come a xenobiologist does not know that? How can this be a new concept to her? How? It's fine if it's new to you, a random human being on this planet, but a xenobiologist should definitely know that. And even more, she should not get an existential crisis because of that. No. Let's get to the third part of our main character, and that is that she is a female. And what do females do? Why are females different from men? They menstruate. That's the main thing that this book is going to tell us. That, and they are very emotional. That's the other. Can you feel my frustration with this? I kind of given it away already, but there is a chapter where our girl gets her period. Well, first she gets some cramps, which are explained in a way where I have literally never in my life heard anybody explain cramps like this. But okay, I can acknowledge that maybe there is a woman out there who has piercing cramps that last for 5 seconds and then nothing, and the woman herself is not aware that those are cramps. Moving on, she goes to the doctor. The doctor tells her, "You are menstruating," and she's like, "Oh!" And then you feel like she's the most stupid woman in the universe. And then you get the explanation that basically every woman in the universe just gets her period turned off. How? Why? It's never explained. It's not relevant to anything. But having the suit on has undone that process, and now she's menstruating again. Guess how many times in the book it is going to be relevant later on? Guess. I'll wait here. You guessed correct. It is exactly 0 times. She mentions it like 2 times briefly. She is like wondering, literally 2 sentences, if she could get pregnant. Did she get pregnant? No. Were the cramps ever an issue? No. Did she ever even menstruate again in those, 2 years or whatever the time span is? It's very wonky. No. Did we need that chapter? No. Is it there? Yes. Here is another amazing example of, oh, let's do this here in this chapter. And then it gets dropped and you never hear from it ever again. The most amazing character in this whole group of people, and there are like a billion characters here which are completely interchangeable between them, apart from the captain who has extremely brilliant blue eyes. They're just so amazing. Yeah, apart from that, everybody is just completely interchangeable. Except from this guy, Gregorovich, who is the ship mind. It's a human whose consciousness is linked to a whole ship. This is actually one of the best parts of the book, the way the ship minds work. And this Gregorovich is, well, the best character, and I would say even the only character that has any character growth in this book. Maybe Gregorovich should be the main character of the book, except for he's not in the first third. Anyhow, we have this ship mind Gregorovich, and at some point they turned him off and whatever, and they're discussing a thing. I don't even remember what they were discussing, irrelevant. But in this meeting, they start talking about Greg. Now, I'm very bad at names, but this is like 20 hours into the book, so I'm pretty confident that I know all the main players. And I'm sitting there thinking, who is Greg? I don't know a Greg. Who are they talking about? And they're all talking about him like they know him. And I don't. I have no idea who Greg is. Turns out it was Gregorovich. They just completely randomly decided to talk about Gregorovich as Greg for 1 chapter and 1 chapter only. and then just move on and call him a Gregorovich again. It is never addressed, never explained. This boggles my mind, because this could have been fixed so easily. You just do a search and replace of Greg to Gregorovich, and that's it. That's how you fix that whole chapter on this particular matter. And they didn't do it. Anyhow, I think I've been recording for an hour already, but there are still two things I need to get off my chest. One is the smelling, the one I put an asterisk in. So the jellies communicate with smells. So not through sound, like we are, or through visuals, but through smells, which in itself is a very interesting thought, and I actually wanted to know more. The thing is, apart from it being like, dude, you know what would be so cool if we were to communicate through smells. And then you just go and write about it without thinking it through at all. What I mean by that is, if you want to communicate through smells, that means that you need to be able to create those smells. Smells are created with molecules, so that means that your body needs to be capable of creating a variety of molecules in a timely manner, because you do want to think about that and then for the other one to hear it, which when we speak is a fairly short time for the impulse from the brain to come to your mouth. The sound comes out, travels at the speed of sound, which is very fast. And then your ears have the mechanism to turn those sound waves into electrical impulses that are then interpreted by your brain. If you were to communicate with smells, what you would need to do apart from being able to create all those molecules is also have receptors for all of them. And you would inevitably have a delay, because a molecule just traveling around in air does need some time to get to you, even if we are standing next to each other. You know this from experience, from when one person farts, it does take some time till the others can smell it as well. That is the exact same thing how this would work. Not once in this book was it mentioned that they have a delay in communication. In fact, they are communicating on a battlefield quite nicely, just like you and I are now, except that I'm not actually there, and they are targeting the communication, which is also a thing where, you know, if you fart, it's not like just the one person next to you is gonna smell it. We all are. So I would call this a very interesting idea that just wasn't developed at all. There's also no mention of the jellies or Kira blowing at each other or something like that to make the communication faster. Or how, for example, if you were to have a longer conversation, the molecules would still be around in the air from your previous sentences. And the longer the conversation would go on, you would need to know what's the leftovers from previous sentences and what's the new one, the new smell. And if it's the same as one of the others, like how do you... Like, this is a very interesting topic to me, as you can see. And I am so sad that it was not explored at all in this book. So I don't understand why it was in there. If you're gonna put it in, then explore it at least a tiny bit. I think this is like a fascinating thing. I would so love to read at least a short story, if not a whole novel, about people, or well, beings, trying to communicate with each other with smells, and how if the conversation lasts a bit longer, they either, I don't know, have to have wind or like an air purifier on all the time. I would love to see this, but as it stands right now, it was just there to be like, ooh, look at this new shiny stuff. Don't think about it too much, but look how shiny it is. Ooh. I don't like that, especially if you're marketing the book as science fiction. If you're gonna put in science in there, I will need you to do some science in it, at least a tiny bit. In the afterword, the author did mention that he had to do a lot of research to make the space travel work, which is okay. I didn't have any problems with that. But I am very sorry that he did not do the research on the other sciences as well. Because physics, and I am biased towards physics, I do love physics more than other sciences. But just because you got the physics right, doesn't mean you got the biology and the chemistry right. And they are all sciences, and you need to work on all of them if you want your book to be in the science fiction part of the library or the bookstore, and to not disappoint people. Of course, you can put anything anywhere. It just, people will get mad. And I am mad. I don't usually rant about books that I'm reading to my kids. That's what my husband's for. But here, my kids know about this book way more than I think they should. But yeah, I read it, so now you don't have to. And hopefully I will be able to edit this down to a watchable length. Bye bye. I'm done.